think it should have started. Did it start?
There we go.
Recording has started. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Sorry, Tom.
Okay, so the first point essentially is that when we were trying to bring on new members, there was a little bit of contention about, was their spot reserved because these processes deploying, $100,000 worth of hardware and co-location takes a little bit of time. And so we kind of wanted, it would have been nice if we had a pre-approval process so that when somebody wanted to join, they could get approval prior to them actually having to spend all of that money and time and effort to build that out, because we could potentially be in a situation where somebody spends all of that money and then there's no slot for them and they're just kind of sitting there paying bills for nothing. So basically this first entry here would just have a pre-approval as the first step of the process to onboarding a new member. They would apply. That pre-approval form would have no requirements for like documentation of companies and CVs and things like that. It would be as strictly, what is your website? What is your company name? What region are you hoping to deploy in? And then we can kind of have conversations with them and go from there. Is everybody on board with that? Does that sound good? Any questions?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, somebody was
Yeah, sounds good to me too.
Okay. All right. So we'll say yes to this one. Okay. So
I mean, that's even necessary, I think. So anyway, yeah.
Okay. So the next one is the basically balancing payments because of the time delay with the 4-day lock of the sub bounties or the child bounties. We've run into a situation where during that unlock period, you could have KSM price swing wildly down or wildly up. So the current thought on this process of how to deal with this is to base the payments on at the time of an unlock. So whatever the price of KSM was at the time of an unlock would become the new KSM payment price, and any kind of discrepancies up or down in that price would be handled on the subsequent month's billing. Any thoughts, questions?
Do we have some sort of tolerance? I mean, if it moves by percent, we could be spending our lives doing quite small, a lot of small admin, because we've already got a slippage of 3% in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, as long as it's within, a tolerance of plus or minus 3%, where there would be no rebalancing required on the subsequent month. But if we went outside that range, then we would need to think about or talk about rebalancing those payments.
And that is something that we would, Milos is joining. That is something that we as janitors would put into the next month's spreadsheet, or do we need?
I believe Coin Studio is going to be tracking the payments and tracking the pricing, so he would actually go and get the KSM price at the time of unlock for everybody and update that, and then he would make sure that that is reflected on the next month's billing.
Okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Milos has just joined. Milos,
yeah, that's good to me.
We're recording this and it will go on YouTube, so let me know if you don't want to be recorded. You need to drop.
It's cool. Okay with me. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Will, are you okay with it?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. The next point is reducing the delay from the P3 to P4 from 180 days to 90 days. And the reason why I wanted to do this is if you look at the P3 payments are around $3,000 a month on the low end. And what I was worried about is we're kind of sticking new members in a situation where they're going to be paying $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month for co-location, and their profit on that amount is only going to be around $1,000 for a period of like 6 months. They will have the payment from the P2 milestone to kind of help them a little bit, but I still feel like that them only having $1,000 for having operated the service for 6 months just seems kind of extreme, and I was thinking to reduce that to 90 days.
What was set to 180 days?
So the P3 milestone as well as the P5 milestone have a SLA attached to them, and you can't progress to the next level until you reach a certain SLA milestone level.
Oh, okay.
And that worked out to about 180 days of wait time. And what I'm suggesting now is to reduce that 180 days of wait time down to 90 days of wait time. Seems more reasonable to me.
All right.
It also
Yeah.
allows it also allows us to hit P4. The first people to hit P4 would be, I think, this month, because some of them we started in November. Otherwise, we would have to wait another 3 months before anybody could hit P4. And in our previous conversation that we had, something that was really interesting to the people on the call was how do we define, or how do we declare success or measure the effectiveness of the program? And it means a certain number of people get to like P6, I think it was, or something like that. So I think it makes sense that we shorten this. We're not saying it's a temporary. We're just saying that after running P3 for 90 days, you can then apply to BP4. Is that right, Tom?
Yes. So basically, currently the wait time for any new member going from P3 to P4 would be 180 days, and I'm suggesting we reduce that to 90 days.
Are we saying that there is any effect to the people who are already members? Because I know myself and probably, is it Tugay, are you already running the P4 services?
Not yet, this week at one point.
Yeah. It won't have any impact to the existing members because we were all artificially advanced in the first call, because we have to run the GeoDNS service and deploy the other services that are necessary to operate the program. So it would not impact us. It's specifically for new members, just to shorten their wait time.
I guess just like in terms of tracking some of these things, like so this is kind of like in relation to, I guess maybe it's like their start date, or kind of like, I guess, like what's the time kind of periods that we're talking about, and also it's like kind of where are we sort of tracking? Because I'm looking at kind of the one of the Google Sheets here, and it's like I don't know if there's anything in relation to like start join time thing necessarily.
So there is currently no kind of timestamp tracking for milestone levels. It's something we're going to have to add in there as well. So the primary tracking point that we were going to use for this is the IBP monitor that Derek is still building out. So I think when we get a little bit more functionality there, we can probably automate that within the monitoring software. And since that is decentralized, then we'll have like this sort of decentralized consensus as to what milestone somebody is, or what milestone, if they meet the requirements to proceed to the next milestone, rather, based upon their current milestone.
Gotcha. I mean, for me at least, like the time period kind of makes sense. It's just kind of like keeping track of it and stuff. That's just like something that I think would be good to have some clarity on. So.
Okay, I think for now we could just use the Excel spreadsheets until we get the functionality that we need built out in the monitor, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so Ben and Will, you guys are both on board with the shortening?
Oh, yeah, about the delay, yeah, totally, it makes sense. This just brings to me another question is, I think we already had this talk, is do we plan at some point to onboard all members on P4, P5, and so on? Because P4 starts to be about parachains, and parachains, I mean, as we know, have much less, the common good parachains have much less activities than than relay chain. So I don't know. I think it would be too much if all the members would go to P4 at some point, but I don't know.
I mean, my hope is that everybody gets to the end. So I would like to see this program grow enough where people start, because we would have so many access points into the network, we would have so many entries in Poke.js, and it would be so redundant that people would start questioning the need for other services and other programs. So I kind of yes, I see it as I would like everybody to be all the way to the end. I would like everybody to be providing all services, especially within the original cluster of of the regional geolocation points that we've identified that we would like to have members in those locations. Like we definitely need some central group of members, but going out from there when we're talking about like 20 members, 40 members, things start to become a little overly redundant at that point. And at that point, I think that it would be a little less critical for members to advance if they didn't want to, or if they didn't meet criteria, or maybe we increase the criteria, or there are a lot of possibilities there. But I would see for right now, yeah, we want to have all of our members up to P6, P7, P8, providing a full range of services.
All right.
Also, just on the thing of like parachain usage and stuff like that, there's kind of just a bunch of like just to outline a little bit of some like the rough plans of something. It's kind of like the idea is to move a lot of the governance things onto like the common good parachain. So it's like the OpenGov stuff. The idea is to kind of like move a lot of those things onto common good parachain. So it's kind of like doing all the transactions, kind of interacting with them and stuff like that. Like that would be done on the parachain side. Similarly with like the treasury, it's like the idea is to eventually also sort of move that to be some of the parachains and stuff. And so it's like, I'm not sure exactly what the time horizon for some of these things are, but it's kind of like the importance of having good infrastructure for the like common good parachains. I think it's going to be growing over time. So.
All right.
Yeah, I meant spoke briefly about the collectives, and we might be. Hi, Kukabi. Just to let you know, this call is being recorded and will go up on YouTube. If you don't agree with that, please drop off. Thank you for joining. Sorry, Will, just to say that I was in contact with, you put me in contact with, not get his name, but anyway, about becoming a use case or an early adopter of the collectives. So the IBP would be interested in doing that. So yeah, it goes to support what you're saying, is that at least some parachains, if not all, will be happy to use our additional infrastructure.
Yeah, I guess so I think it was maybe Joe that you talked to. I guess what was his response to some of those things?
All right. Well, I guess, yeah, totally. Well, anyway, having the actual members and members of the first year, it's like 10 to 12 members. That totally makes sense. I'm just, thinking about it. If depending on the usage of these common good parachains, it could be like, I just don't want it to be a waste, to have like 50 members for, I don't know, for state mine, statement, which, well, until now, at least clearly doesn't have a high level of usage, and for obvious reasons, because you don't, I mean, except XCM, you don't do a lot of activity on statement, for example. But I guess that's something for the future. So anyway, I'm okay with the proposal here.
Okay. So the next one is mechanisms to further incentivize democracy, and this is I mean, there's really nothing to vote on here, but just something to put into the collective consciousness that it would be ideal, I think, for us to think about ways to further incentivize democracy participation within IBP members, specifically at high conviction rates, because it would be ideal to see the members of the IBP, at least in my mind, become very active in the governance and voting and going on AAG and leaving comments on proposals and things of that nature. So, if anybody can think of any ways to incentivize that process to make people to want to become part of governance, that would be awesome if you come up with an idea. So the next one after that is rebalancing of payments. Essentially what happened is I started designing this proposal in October of last year, September of last year. So all of the data centers essentially worldwide increased their prices starting in like November, December of last year. And so as a result, my pricing of software as a service is no longer currently reflective of costs that members would be paying. Now, I think we have a chance here to kill two birds with one stone, because there's an additional problem that I've been thinking about, and that is boot nodes for the common good parachains. We end up in a situation where, because common good parachains are theoretically infinite up to 200 in total, where we could be running essentially 400 boot nodes for a one-time payment of $15,000. And what I'm thinking is that we could limit the number of boot nodes that are required as a function of the P4 milestone to what seems reasonable to me would be 6. And then anything over 6 that we would have a software as a service payment for those additional boot nodes. So currently P4 milestone in total, there's only 7 that you can actually launch right now, because boot node, boot hub, bridge hub on Polkadot and West End are not currently functional, but it is functional in Kusama. So right now we're currently at 7 boot nodes that are required for P4 milestone. So I think what would be ideal is if the P4 milestone, we set a limit and say 6 boot nodes maximum for common goods parachains, and then anything over 6 boot nodes would be optional, but that if you ran them, then we'll provide an additional software as a service payment. So that way we don't have to rebalance any of the payments as a result of cost increases that were occurred on members due to that discrepancy in pricing. And as time goes forward and we have more boot nodes, that boot node requirements is a function of P4, that members would receive software as a service payments for those. So it's kind of deals with the issue of growing common good parachains and deals with the issue of needing to rebalance these payments.
Yeah, to me that makes sense.
Okay.
And an alternative to that, Tom, could be that we share out the parachains between all the members. So not every member runs every parachain. But if we've got 30 members, for example, we could split that into 3 tranches, and each member can run, 10 parachains, and they could be told which 10 to run, just as an alternative, if you want.
No, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I would see that as a case if members did not want to run extra boot nodes. Maybe they don't want to for some reason. It's just, kind of a pain to keep up with all of them and synchronize all the SSL certificates and make sure everything's functioning correctly. It's a lot of nodes. But yeah, I mean, if they did decide to go past that required minimum of 6, we could provide additional payments for those. It was just one thought. Are you okay with that, Ben?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I keep in mind Derek's thought about it, but for later on. Anyway, I guess that's not a topic right now.
Parachain boot nodes.
Parachain boot nodes, yeah.
Yeah, for the P4, yep.
Yeah.
All right, so now we get to the Amfork issue with Tugi, because he was running a white label service. So I talked with Tugi, and he is here with us today. And he was saying that he does not currently have any white label customers. So essentially the issue here is more of like a code of conduct thing, that it's not necessarily that we're against you, Tugi. It's just that by providing these white label services, it kind of goes against the general code of conduct of decentralization. And to that end, I've actually come up with a code of conduct that will be applicable to future members. That I already put that on the form. Let me see if I can pull that up. Derek, would you mind pulling up one of the forms?
You paste
One-
the
Oh, okay.
URL.
Yeah, 1 second here.
So while we wait, yeah, as I also wrote yesterday, like we offer it, but we don't have any white label customers. We have some dedicated stuff that we run, but like nothing that we publicly run in name of others. And we also have no problem removing it.
Thanks, Today. I think the whole point behind the decentralization is that, and I'm still conflicted as to, should you know who the RPC operator is, or should it be in complete Web3 parlance trustless? And that is a square circle for me, because you have to be able to trust the RPC node that you're connecting to, and therefore I think the RPC operator should be known. And I don't know how it would work in a trustless environment, where, I mean, that's the whole context of Web3, is that you should somehow be able to, well, I guess people need to run their own RPC nodes, right? And then that's the only way to get 100% trust, because the protocol will make sure that consensus is achieved.
That's a large topic, right?
Yeah, I know, but the whole question about white labeling is that you don't the end customer doesn't necessarily know who's operating the service. But yes, it's a large topic. Do you have that link, Tom?
Yeah, I send it over to you.
There you go.
So the code of conduct would be down in the bottom there. But generally, I mean, like, I'm kind of conflicted on this, because it's like, this reminds me of FTX. Like, FTX did all the right things. They said all the right things, but look at the result. You know, it's a situation where things should be trustless, and it's like, even if we were to bar or have a code of conduct, it doesn't necessarily mean that the any potential member is not going to, you don't have access to it. Give me 1 second here.
Hang on. I was going in. No, for some reason, don't have access to Google Docs. I have a hate relationship with Google Docs and forms. But
you're on as Derek at NetSimple.
Bye.
Maybe I can have a little one while Derek is looking for the document. So yeah, I was the one who brought the point to Gary. So yeah, as a matter of fact, it's nothing against you, especially, of course, but it's just considering basically that offering white label services goes against decentralization principles. And so in this way, I thought it would be only fair if members would engage not running white label services. Of course, you can run infrastructure as a service. That's not, I mean, everyone is using it today. That's very different. But white label is like very different services where you create actually a single point of failure, which is to me incompatible with basically a program like IBP. So I guess that's interesting to hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean,
Can't unagree. This has to be a checkbox. Tom?
I mean, it's a multiple choice, but there's a multiple choice with an answer of one. So you have to agree to it.
Okay.
So, you know, we'll give you the general idea of the code of conduct. It will essentially, it's just saying that, you know, we need to be more open, be more transparent, and promote decentralization in the things that we do. You know, it's like I said before, though, a code of conduct can help a semi-honest operator be honest, but it's never going to help a bad operator be good. If somebody, you know, has an intent from the get-go to be a bad actor, they're going to be a bad actor regardless of what code of conduct there is and things like that. So it's, you know, I'm kind of cross between the trustless and trusted myself. I'm not sure how to handle that.
There is a minimum based on trust anyway. You can't do everything trustless in this. I mean,
unfortunately.
I think
so.
I'm okay with the words. Are you guys okay with? There's two questions. Are you okay with us having a code of conduct? And are you okay with the wording? BLT and
Yep.
Will, you need to note now for the record.
Yeah, I mean, to me, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Same here.
So I guess the issue comes down to, so Tugi is willing to remove the white label services from his website. Is everybody happy with that, or are there still lingering issues?
Yeah, I mean, if that's not something that you consider should be a part of your business, I mean, on my side, I'm totally fine. Just don't want to say, just stop this. That's not my role to say you do this or you do that. Yeah. But if you just tell us here, that's not something part of your business.
Yeah, I mean, we just had it as an option on the website, right? So it's like we don't have any white label customers, so we have no problem removing it. So we'll stick to the public and dedicated stuff that we do.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
Was that just a way for you looking to increase revenue and other options of how to bring in revenue for your existing business, I assume?
Yeah, like we were trying to get people to, basically the idea is so that everyone focuses on their core know-how or knowledge, right? So people could then, in this case with white label solution, if someone can take care of the business part and we provide like the tech part for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So if you would like, I mean, there's still a lot of work to do in the IBP to grow the service onto for-profit parachains. I've identified roughly like 21 potential targets that have, I say targets, but we're providing services to them, right? But at some point we have to sell them on the service. But I've identified potentially 21 parachains where that we, in theory, could be beneficial to those parachains. So if you would like, you can spend time and effort reaching out to those teams. And I was going to write some treasury, like a few variations of treasury proposals that we could use to reach out to those teams, and maybe that could offset revenue that you were hoping to get from the white label service.
Just
So-
Gustav from Dweller is joining. Hi, Gustav. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Just to
Hello.
let you know, the meeting is recorded and will go on YouTube. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next topic would be the removing the professional milestone 6. Essentially, what's happened with the warp sync technology, or the warp sync technology, I guess is the best word for it, is that it's become so beneficial to the ecosystem that it doesn't really seem necessary to continue to offer snapshot services as part of the program. And so there's some discussion around removing snapshot services entirely. This was primarily from Ben's side. I've actually never used the warp sync before, so I just fire my nodes up and I let them sync the old-fashioned way, nice and slow. But Ben was saying that the warp sync technology is there. I think Tugi was kind of had a little bit of a rebuff to that, where there's some situations where it wouldn't entirely meet the needs of the network. I think that for me, this question comes down to like a cost perspective of what is the treasury getting for what they're paying for, and is that amount really necessary versus other solutions available in the ecosystem. So if you guys want to take over that conversation.
If I maybe can add 2 cents there, like snapshots are really usually used when you have like emergencies or failover kind of stuff. So with the warp sync, currently it takes like 3 to 4 hours. Like after 45 minutes, it has like the current set, but still continues to sync for another 3 to 4 hours until it's actually done. So I don't know, Will, if you know it, can we use it as a validator after those 40 minutes?
So it sort of depends. Like when you kind of have the warp sync thing, and it depends also kind of like when you specify the pruning, but it's like kind of like once it finishes this initial kind of like warp sync process, which I think this should take like 10 minutes or something. It's like actually not super long.
Okay.
It should actually be able to, because it'll if you specify it's like 256 is pruning or whatever, it's kind of like it will backfill the past like 256 blocks from like the current state of things. So it's like whatever that 10 minutes is kind of just like downloading those 256 blocks or whatever kind of pruning that you set for that. And then if you're running like a validator, for example, it would be able to like run fine, and then it will kind of do some other things in the background of some things that may take a little bit longer, but it's kind of like if you're actually running like validators and stuff like that, it should be fine in that use case. But just in the idea of kind of like snapshots and stuff like that, like because like warp sync is working like relatively fine and all this kind of stuff, I don't think it's like as useful to have like snapshots that are like 1,000 blocks or 256 blocks or whatever it is, but I could still see a bit of value in having like archive snapshots, just because like things that you require to have like archive nodes for, where it's like a RPC node, or if you're kind of doing things like indexing or like subquery or those kinds of things, like you'll need like an archive node for those types of things. And it's like being able to get like a full archive node up and running like quicker, as opposed to just like letting things sync from the very beginning. Like I could see some value in that, but so like the pruned database snapshots, I could see a bit less of value in that, I guess.
So you're saying maybe still keep the service around for full archive, and maybe do like some torrent full archive node kind of seeding, but get rid of all the pruned snapshots.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
I tried this morning.
I mean,
warp sync doesn't work if you're having pruning equals archive. So everything else, depending on if you want 1,000 blocks or 256 blocks or 10 blocks, the number of blocks is completely inconsequential to the rest of state. 1,000 blocks is nothing. You know, you synchronize 1,000 blocks in about 5 seconds. So depending on your thing. So I think who would use an archive node and who would need an archive node kind of like within hours? Because I know that based on my estimates, it takes just over 48 hours, something like 49 hours, to do a full archive sync of Kusama. So
I think it goes even faster if I remember correctly my test, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I agree with Will on the prune database doesn't make a lot of sense to have snapshots. And yeah, wrap sync doesn't. It's usable, but as you have the state, but you don't have, of course, full data. So there would be only, they say there would be only archive. But since that, yeah, archive would be only useful for RPCs or for indexers. I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense to have each member managing an archive, a snapshot of archive node. Well, especially considering it depends on the vision on each one, but you know, not everybody considers an archive, a snapshot of an archive to be fully reliable, because it can depend on the conditions of what the nodes has been syncing. So the source of the archive can be a bit different. It can have different version. So if we go with that, we could need also one for the Ruckus DB, one for the parity DB. So yeah.
I mean, we could still provide that. Like the current snapshots we provide, we always sync from scratch with each release, and we provide it for both parity DB and Rocks DB.
So for I would just to clarify one point. So every member would not actually make their own snapshots. Each member would only synchronize to the torrent network, and then Tugi would actually be the source of all snapshots. So he would produce all snapshots, and we would just run a script that would synchronize these and provide seeding services to those snapshots.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess this makes sense in this case.
Okay. I guess also just like on the value of these things, it's kind of like in the context of like validators and stuff like that, it was more valuable just because like validators are kind of like having things up in kind of like availability, that kind of thing. It's a lot more useful for people where it's like, oh, this is down, I'm going to get like an offline event, that kind of thing. Like getting this up with a quick period of time is like pretty useful. Like the people that would use the archive snapshots, stuff like that, it's more so like it's a smaller amount of people, because it's mostly like people like people in this program, people running like RPC nodes that would kind of like use these things. And so it's like the actual value is perhaps a bit less. It's like still valuable, I think, but it's like depending on, I guess, like it's kind of like a cost versus value kind of thing here, I guess, is the kind of thing. And it's kind of like compared to, I guess, like validators, it's like not quite as useful necessarily, but it's like I think it's like there should be something in the network, someone in the network that provides these kinds of things, but it's kind of like does everybody contribute to that thing? I don't know, but like yeah.
So the current costs here associated with this, with a full 12-member setup, would be roughly about $100,000 a year to provide the archive service, the archive snapshots.
Seems a bit, a bit much for the value it brings, I guess, but just a thought.
Or we could maybe like do something. We just like one person per continent seeds, or like not everyone is part of the torrent seeding it, but just like one per continent.
It's possible. So I guess let's wrap up this conversation and move on to the next one. We got about 20 minutes left in the allotted time, so let's push this one off for more thought, and I'll think about it some more, and we'll come back to it next meeting. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So the next topic for discussion is dwellers. So I was not actually able to find any sort of reference of cost for Africa for colocation, bandwidth, etc. when building out the program. I kind of just went with what I knew based upon Australia and Asia, and kind of made assumptions about Africa. So I'm glad that Gustav, you're here, and you can kind of tell us, is the program going to be adequate for you, or you're going to need more or less, or you're still muted, by the way.
My first scan was that I think it's okay, and some parts, like Tom, that I want to talk with you, and I mean I can share it with everyone here, but maybe I don't want to share it on YouTube, is the budget I shared with you and what we have been taking into account. And like some of the things we haven't been taking into account is things like, yeah, I can see what Coin Studio, and also I've been chatting with Benjamin a little bit about how it is to be in Lagos, Nigeria. It's a bit different from Europe or the US, a little bit on the, like, you have costs that you don't have in the US and in Europe for operating there. I think the big difference, or like there are two things. So first of all, electricity is pretty expensive in West Africa, in Nigeria, and also bandwidth. It's much more expensive with bandwidth in Nigeria than it is in the US or Europe, or actually also different from North Africa. So it's more expensive than average price you pay. I was also surprised how expensive it is. And you have to pay basically $3 per megabit for on your internet connection. And on top of that, you have to pay, separately, like the electricity bill, but also the renting the physical storage or co-location site, because electricity is relatively expensive for them over there. But yeah, that's basically it.
So when you mentioned the additional costs, just a quick question, sorry. I assume that security is part of that. Do you have to worry about transport from airport to co-location site, or how does that all work?
Yeah, exactly. So as someone who looks like us, unfortunately, going to Lagos can be there are some security concerns. it's not a war zone, but you just have to be aware, and you can't really walk anywhere, and you shouldn't be moving after the sun goes down. And also these co-location sites are in industrial areas. It's not like, the posh downtown of Lagos. It's industrial neighborhoods, and you move around with car, and you have a driver to move around from the airport to the hotel, from the hotel to the co-location site. And also going down to do the deployment, it's just like, you can't just calculate like, I fly in, I show up with equipment, I install everything in 2 hours, and then head out. No, it's everything can happen, and things that we kind of take for assumption that will work and might not be working there. And in December, we were in Tunisia, North Africa, and they didn't have screwdrivers, only had broken screwdrivers, and we had to go out in the countryside to find screwdrivers. They didn't have, power sockets for connecting, so we went out another time to find power sockets, and we came home with 2, and then we start deploying and realizing that we're missing components in one of the power sockets, and then we have to go another time for a trip, and people don't show up when you're supposed to. And I definitely don't want to say this in any way to be, sound like racist in any way. I'm married to a Tunisian girl, and she's wonderful, but it's just like how we calculate, with time and efficiency in maybe in Europe and US, it's not the same thing over there. So you just have to take that into account. Everything takes a little bit longer and can be a little bit more complicated.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's a good topic, because there is also, as far as I know, for example, Asia will be more expensive too. So yeah, I guess my question to you, Gustav, now is, do you have an estimate of what would be the overall cost in something like in percentage, without going into details, so that we can, have an idea?
I mean, so in terms of the recurring costs in terms of bandwidth, calculating with 60 megabits of bandwidth and renting 2 units of storage in a co-location site, it's $470 per month. That's the kind of recurring cost. And the deployment cost in terms of, buying a switch, a small switch, buying a server, traveling down there, getting the visas, staying 4 nights in a hotel, it's $10,000. That's the cost.
So just to give an idea to everyone in terms of recurring costs, what is the difference compared to standard ones that we have until now?
Sorry, were you asking for Gustav, or were you just asking for general estimates?
Yeah, just have what is the extra recurring cost compared to other members today? I'm sorry, I don't have numbers in mind, so that's why I'm asking.
It's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison, because he's doing the single unit, or it sounds like you're doing single unit co-location, like you're renting the co-location per you. Is that correct? So yeah, I believe the other members are all renting the full rack, and the full rack in that case would be more expensive, obviously. The bandwidth is really going to be the killer here. There's about a 10x difference in bandwidth cost between like my site, for instance, and their site. It is a little bit less than I thought. Like I was expecting him to give a number like $10 a megabit or something like that, but $3 is actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So just in overall, because I'm sorry, I really don't have number in mind. It's what, like double cost of the usual of other members, or it's 50% more?
I would say it's about it's the equivalent of the cost of a location in Australia, but his bandwidth cost is actually a little bit lower than it would be in Australia. But I mean, I'm okay with that because of the additional issues that are involved in his deployment, if that makes sense.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it's not 10 times another number, but if we're in this
No,
kind
it's
of
not 10
reasonable
times.
numbers, it's fine.
For us, as a comparison, I think it's the double. It's more. It's like 150% more than the cost in Tunisia, in North Africa, basically. So a little bit more than double. But I mean, it's interesting thinking of it as, what's the average salary in Nigeria, Lagos. It doesn't seem, yeah, but that's a different topic.
So one additional question I have for you is, what are you planning to do for your on-site remote? Are you going to use remote hands, or do you have an employee there on site to deal with hardware issues? Or
we are actually having two options. One is to use remote hands by the rack center. This is the co-location site we're using, but we're also in conversation with two guys from the Polkadot community that live in Lagos, and we actually would want to kind of involve them, and if they could do some of the remote hands work and operation that would be required, that would be really, really awesome. And so that's have those two options. And we're actually meeting them, the Polkadot community members, when we're down there. So we'll evaluate them and do a little bit of work. It's actually one of them who helped us to find this site, Rack Center, was through the community, which is also great.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, in this proportion, that's my personal opinion, but that makes sense because, I mean, we don't have any other option in Africa for now, and Africa is definitely a region that needs to be covered. So yeah, I'm on my side. I'm in favor.
And we're here to help. If you need anything, if you need any assistance from us, just let us know, and we're happy to provide assistance that you might need.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
We're excited.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. So last topic of discussion, Derek, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, thanks. One of the requirements of the program is that we operate as a legal entity, as a company. And if you operate as a legal entity in the UK, I suspect it's the same in Scotland and in Europe. But anyway, I only know about England and Wales, is that if you have services or sales of more than £60,000 per year, it's the law that you must register for VAT, and then you must charge VAT on your sales. So if I was a window cleaner and I had more than 60,000 a year, I have to charge VAT when I come and clean your window. There is an exception to that, where if you're doing B2B sales, in other words, you're selling to another organization that will repurpose your work, repackage it, somehow transform it, and sell it as a different good. So if I sell cardboard boxes, right, and I sell to a shop, and that shop puts stuff in the cardboard box and sends it on as a different product, then, and this is assuming that this shop is outside of the UK, then according to the UK VAT regulations, the place of the sale happens at the B2B customer. So that means, in my case, I would not have to charge VAT because it's an international sale. However, if you are selling B2C, that's business to end customer, UK VAT rules require that the sale is deemed to happen at the location of the provider. So that means happens in the UK at my address, and therefore, if it's B2C sales, doesn't matter. Sorry, it doesn't matter where it is. I have to charge VAT. The only way to get a B2B sale registered as a B2B sale is that the customer must provide place of business, a proof that they are actually operating a business, and proof that they are operating inside of their own VAT or general sales tax or whatever it is regime in their location. And that's where we fall down. That's because the IBP or the Treasury or whoever it is isn't a business. So basically the short story is that for the services that we provide to the IBP, I have to charge VAT. And my request was that that VAT should be added on top of the numbers that we are paying each other, or that the IBP pays its members.
And just to be clear, so this is one of the questions I have for Derek, is that this VAT is separate from income tax, is that he is still required to pay income tax after paying this VAT. So it's not, it's like a double taxation for him. And it's not similar to the situations in the US or in other jurisdictions that I've done business before.
So if you would like, with my accounting background, I could bore you to tears with an explanation of the difference between VAT, general sales tax, and income tax. But to answer your question straight away, Tom, the general sales, the sales tax, which is called VAT in the UK, literally I receive it. So if I charge £100, I put 20% on top of that. That 20% comes into my bank account as £20 and goes straight through to HMRC, Inland Revenue. It's not mine. I handle it on behalf of the VAT office. And then if I make a profit on that £100, for example, if I had costs of 60, I'd make a profit of 40 and I pay corporation tax on that 40. So yeah, that's 20% VAT. I don't get a chance to actually make a margin or anything like that on it. Okay.
All right. And it's just in UK, so you're the only member concerned, right?
No,
Well,
we are also concerned, and actually had a meeting with the accountant on Thursday, and we are investigating. I think in the UK the rules are a bit more explicit. Over here it's very much a gray area situation, and we are nervous about the situation, similar what Derek expressed, and we are investigating it actually. And it doesn't actually just apply for IBP, it goes for all the treasury proposals that we make to the Kusama Treasury. The same situation.
Okay.
So I recognize the problem, Derek. I recognize the problem.
We are also checking, but
sorry, to go.
We're also checking, but for us, so far, it's not 100% clear yet, but it looks like we don't have to, in Switzerland, we don't have to pay VAT because the treasury is considered foreign. So like we also have the same where VAT only applies if the paying end is inside the country, but so far it looks like we don't have to, but not 100% clear. We're still checking, but.
There are two other people that I have been in contact with on Kusama chats. I can't remember. And both of them said to me, "Oh, you don't have to worry." And I said, "Well, have you seen this thing from HMRC?" And they said, "We better go and check with our accountants." So yeah, I suspect they will also have to charge VAT, which is really annoying. And I don't know if you guys are discussing this internally, Will, but I also had a call from Paranoids to speak to me about this. The US, I wouldn't say they're particularly advanced, not the US, the UK, I wouldn't say they're particularly advanced in the area of cryptos, but they already have statements out. Like, for example, if a company earns money through staking, right, the company might be registered for VAT, and when it receives those tokens as part of the staking or nomination process, the US already has practice note out stating that revenue or gains from staking do not fall inside of the VAT rules. So that's great for us if we're earning tokens, but if we are providing services and being paid in tokens, it's exactly the same as though I was being paid in US dollars or in pounds. So the normal VAT rules apply. Okay.
Okay. Can we get maybe, because if it's not clear for every members, can we ask to all members, it's like if there is another cost, we have to estimate it to know how many members we can onboard, that's especially that.
I think it's really important that we actually start having financial projections and financial reports. So one of the things that we said is we'd probably do a quarterly report, and in the quarterly report we should have, where the money has gone, how much is left, and what's our projection. And in that we could detail the actual costs of providing the services, and we could also detail an extra line if necessary to say, what is the VAT on top of that. I can imagine that we shouldn't necessarily be responsible for each member, that they operate their business according to the local laws and regulations where they are. That should also be in the code of conduct. Because what we don't want is 6 months down the line, somebody getting a letter from their tax authorities saying you now owe VAT, or you owe X, or even something as crazy as, if you hire a little room in the back of someone's office, you might be deemed to be operating a business from that room, and therefore you might have to pay something called business rates in the UK. And business rates are sometimes, depending on where you are, if you're in the high street or if you're in a back street or something like that, it could be thousands a month just for the license to operate a business from a premises, right? So all of this stuff should be covered by the member's own operating procedures. We don't want somebody coming back to the IBP 6 months later saying, oh, I got back taxes, can you please help me pay $15,000 or whatever. It should already be costed into their ways of working. We have a little bit of not chicken and egg, but we have two things. We want artisan providers. We don't want the Amazons or the Microsofts or the Googles or whatever it is. But the people who become members have to have experience of running businesses, right? Because otherwise, it's we have to teach somebody. Now, I guess, Gustav, you're already in the realms of you're actually operating the business remotely, and you don't have hands on the ground yet. And the reason why we're doing that, and we all appreciate it, by the way, the fact that you've taken, the flights and gone there and all of that, but we don't have local operators, or at least if there are local operators, they're not stepping up. Either the communication or the message isn't there, or they don't feel that they'd be welcome, but they should. Let's hope we can get local operators. Anyway, conscious of time, some of you may have follow-on meetings, but just for the record, we don't have Queen Studios approval here yet, but if we could have BLD and Will's approval, are you accepting that we will add VAT onto the figures for payments in the regions where that's required? Now, the question is, we probably have to provide, and I can provide my VAT registration to show you that I am VAT registered, and I can also give you the copies of the invoices to show you that VAT has been charged and will be paid over to UK government.
Yeah, I mean, for me that sounds good.
Yeah, me too. To me too, in the principle, if you need to pay VAT, so it should be covered anyway. And yeah, a bit more largely, we should bring the topic to all members or all candidates to, as you said, to make sure we won't have any surprise in the program that we couldn't handle with with the size of the treasury we have.
It would be perhaps worth useful to maybe make like a thread on like the Polkadot forum, just because it's like just in the context of like other people making treasury proposals and that kind of thing. Because it's like other people that have done treasury stuff, it's like they may also have insights from their own kind of jurisdictions and stuff like that. So it's like trying to maybe also just crowdsource other people's insight if they have like looked into that before, if they have like other financial like advisors and stuff like that could be useful maybe.
Yeah. I have a separate thread in one of the governance. I don't want to flick now because I'm not sure exactly where I'll land if I change my screen. But I have a separate thread in conversation with 2 other people ongoing. And what I will do is I'll open a discussion on the. I've actually lost access to the forum for some reason, but I don't go to the forum a lot anyway. Well, I don't go to the forum at all. I'll put it on Polk Assembly. To see, do you think that's the right place?
Like the Polkadot forum is in kind of like forum.polkadot.network. I think might be a good place as well, because like sometimes Polk Assembly stuff kind of gets like lost, I feel. Like let me see if there's a leak category here. There's this in the chat. Yeah, so there's a governance section here. I'm not sure if there's anything there yet about this kind of thing, but here might be a good place as well for just some discussion.
Okay. Yep, I'll put it. I'll put a topic on here, and cool. Do we have any other business?
I believe that is it. Thank you everybody for coming. If anybody has any questions or anything later on, just let me know and we can add it to the next topics for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Cool. Sounds good.
Great.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank
Bye.
you.
I'll post
Thank
the link.
you.